What if the future of an entire nation could be turned upside down with one bold decision? That's exactly what happened when Burkina Faso's prime minister presented a plan that left parliament and the world reeling in disbelief. It was a typical morning in the National Assembly of Burkina Faso, where politicians gathered for a session they thought would be another routine discussion. But the prime minister, Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, had something very different in mind. As he stood to speak, the members of parliament, the media, and the public were all in suspense. Damiba wasn't just addressing them about new reforms or minor policy changes. No, he was about to unveil a plan that would alter the very structure of the country itself. His speech was carefully crafted, each word chosen to deliver a shocking revelation. The plan, he declared, was one that would change the future of governance, security, and the economy of Burkina Faso forever. This moment marked a turning point in the country's history, but no one knew then how the nation would react to such an unprecedented proposal. The core of Damiba's plan was a complete political shift, one that would decentralize power and give more autonomy to local governments. Historically, Burkina Faso, like many countries, had a highly centralized form of governance where key decisions were made in the capital, Ouagadougou. This centralized approach had worked for some time, but as the country faced increasing challenges, from economic stagnation to security threats, Damiba believed it was time to give the people more control over their own lives. His vision was a radical one: to restructure the country's political system so that each region would have the power to make decisions that directly impacted its economy, security, and development. This was not just a political reform, it was a new vision for a decentralized future where citizens could shape their own destinies. But was the nation ready for this monumental change? Burkina Faso has faced severe security challenges in recent years. Extremist groups, including those affiliated with Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, have terrorized vast regions of the country. Especially in the north and east, thousands of citizens have lost their lives, and many more have been displaced from their homes. Damiba's plan proposed a radical solution: decentralizing security. He suggested creating local defense forces composed of community members who would be trained and equipped to protect their own regions from external threats. This idea was both controversial and revolutionary. On one hand, it could empower local communities to take control of their own security. On the other hand, it raised concerns about potential fragmentation and chaos, especially in regions already struggling with extremist violence. Could local militias truly safeguard a country in the throes of war, or would this lead to more disarray and even deeper divisions? In addition to political and security changes, Damiba's plan also called for a sweeping economic overhaul. For years, Burkina Faso's economy had been hindered by corruption, a lack of infrastructure, and an over-reliance on foreign aid. Damiba's vision sought to tackle these issues head-on. He proposed a system that focused on the revitalization of local economies, particularly in rural areas, by empowering small businesses, promoting local industries, and encouraging innovation. He argued that if each region could control its economic development, it would lead to a more balanced and sustainable national economy. By focusing on agriculture, local entrepreneurship, and education, Damiba envisioned a future where the country would no longer be dependent on foreign aid or multinational corporations. However, there were concerns about whether the regions had the infrastructure, resources, and expertise to carry out such ambitious projects. Could the local level handle the responsibility of economic independence, or would this decentralization be too much for some regions to manage? As Damiba finished outlining his plan, the room was filled with murmurs. Members of parliament were caught off guard, with some expressing disbelief, while others were curious about the potential of such a radical shift. For years, political leaders in Burkina Faso had adhered to the traditional, centralized model of governance. Now, Prime Minister Damiba was challenging that entire structure. The immediate reaction was mixed. Some parliamentarians applauded his bold vision and commended his desire to empower the people. Others, however, were deeply skeptical. Could decentralization really work in a country already plagued by so many challenges? The debate was heated, with some lawmakers calling the plan a dangerous gamble, while others viewed it as the country's last hope for survival. The tension in the room was palpable, and it became clear that Damiba's proposal would not be accepted without a fight. As the news of Damiba's plan spread across the country, the people of Burkina Faso reacted in a variety of ways. For many ordinary citizens, Damiba's proposal was a beacon of hope. Years of political corruption and a lack of progress had left many disillusioned with the status quo. The idea of decentralizing power and giving citizens more control over their own lives resonated with a population desperate for change. The streets of Ouagadougou and other cities were filled with people expressing their support for Damiba's vision, chanting slogans of empowerment and reform. However, not everyone was enthusiastic. Many citizens feared the unknown and questioned whether decentralization would lead to more fragmentation and even greater instability. Would the country's security improve, or would local forces be unable to stand up to the growing threats of terrorism? Could Burkina Faso handle such a radical transformation without unraveling? Damiba's plan didn't just send shockwaves through Burkina Faso, it caught the attention of neighboring countries and international organizations. West Africa has long struggled with instability, and Damiba's proposal seemed like a radical departure from the traditional methods of governance in the region. Some neighboring nations, like Mali and Niger, already had decentralized systems to some extent and had seen both successes and challenges. Burkina Faso's move could either inspire reform across the region or serve as a cautionary tale for others who might consider such a bold shift. Regional leaders were watching closely, especially given the growing threat of extremist groups in the Sahel. Would decentralization strengthen the ability of individual nations to resist terrorism, or would it create more opportunities for instability and conflict? One of the biggest questions surrounding Damiba's plan was its feasibility. While the idea of decentralizing power and giving more control to local governments seemed appealing, implementing such a plan was another matter entirely. The country lacked the infrastructure and resources to carry out such an ambitious shift. For one, decentralization would require a complete overhaul of the legal system, as well as the creation of new institutions at the local level. Additionally, the proposal to increase local military forces raised concerns about the country's ability to maintain a unified front against extremist groups. Would the regions be able to coordinate effectively? Would local governments have the capacity to manage such complex issues as security, education, and healthcare? Damiba's plan promised a brighter future for Burkina Faso, but many wondered whether the nation was ready to take on such a monumental challenge. As the debate continued to rage in parliament and across the country, Burkina Faso found itself at a crossroads. The nation was deeply divided over the future of the country. On one hand, there were those who saw Damiba's plan as the beginning of a new era, one where the people would have more say in their governance, their economy, and their security. On the other hand, there were those who feared that decentralization would lead to chaos, infighting, and even civil conflict. Could a decentralized Burkina Faso manage to stay united, or would the new system fragment the country even further? As the government moved forward with discussions on Damiba's proposal, it became clear that the country was facing its biggest test yet. The stakes had never been higher. In the end, Burkina Faso's future rested on the implementation of Prime Minister Damiba's plan. The country was at a pivotal moment in its history, and the consequences of this decision would be felt for generations to come. Would the radical transformation bring about a stronger, more resilient Burkina Faso, or would it lead to even more instability and chaos? The nation waited with bated breath as the government continued to work out the details. The outcome of this bold experiment in governance would determine not only the future of Burkina Faso, but also serve as a lesson for the rest of Africa and the world. One thing was certain: Damiba had made a statement that would echo throughout history. As we reflect on the bold move made by Prime Minister Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, one thing is clear. The future of Burkina Faso is in the hands of its leaders and its people. The plan to decentralize governance, security, and the economy is a gamble, but it's also a chance for a new chapter in the country's story. Whether it will succeed or fail, only twos. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.